Hi everyone, welcome to lesson 3 of IQ Designer and my Design Center. And in this particular lesson, we're going to focus on the line properties. I am doing this video on a Babylock Valiant, which is the equivalent to the Brother 1050X, and the principles and the fundamentals that I am explaining are applicable to numerous of Brother and Babylock high-end machines. You may not have as many options, or you may have more options than what I have, but it's all going to kind of fit together, and I think you'll be able to understand this a little bit better. All right, I'm going to go into IQ Designer on a Brother machine. It would be my Design Center. And if you are working with a single needle machine, again, some of these options like the line properties and the fill properties are going to be located on the right hand side, but the general principles are the same. On some of the newer machines, you will not have an extra viewing area. That is that is okay because you have an improved magnification system and you also have a pan feature. So don't worry about those differences. This is really going to focus on the line properties, and you will be able to apply that to most of the Brother and Babylock top of the line machines. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to go into my shapes, and if I hadn't already chosen my hoop size, I would use this icon and choose the hoop size that I plan on using. I already have designated the 8x12 hoop, and that is represented by a gray border, and that gray border is simply used as a reference and it will not stitch out. I'm going to choose in this first folder here the icon for border or line property only. I will choose a circle and press OK. All right, the circle is on my screen. The red bounding box is around it. Now what I want to do is apply a line property to this. I want you to focus on this area right here. This is your line properties box. And I always say, look at the pencil, because with a pencil, you draw a line. With a paintbrush over here, you're painting a swath of an area. This is your region properties box. We're focusing today only on the line properties box. And if you're working with a single needle, that will be located over here, as well as the region properties will be located over on the right-hand side. Don't be concerned with the location. This is more about the fundamentals of the line properties. All right, so here's the circle here. When you bring in a circle, it defaults to a satin stitch feature. You don't really see that, and the reason being is that you have more screens to actually see that property. So this icon right here, next, let me cancel that and go back. Next, we're going to press that, and that's going to take us to a screen, and you will see a little halo effect around the circle. And how do we know what line property has been applied? Because up here, it will always tell you the line property that has been applied to the area in which the halo effect is displayed in this particular screen. To actually see what that satin stitch looks like, we have to press the preview icon. When we press preview, we're going to get a message. IQ data will not be saved. Is it okay to continue? I'm just going to press OK for now. And it's going to show me what that's going to look like. The size, the satin stitch look right here, and also the number of the particular thread brand that I have selected in my settings. All right, so I know what that looks like. I'm going to press return to go back and then cancel. I am back at the screen that should be familiar to you if you watch lesson 1 and 2. Now to apply the line properties, I have to focus on the line property box. So I am going to select the notepad right here. And when you select the notepad, it brings up the line properties as displayed right here. Your default line property is the satin stitch, but on my machine, I have the running stitch, the triple bean, the candle wicking stitch, and also the diamond stitch and the no stitch feature right here over at the left-hand side on the bottom row. You can also select your colors here, so you can change your color, and that's fine. I am going to change this color, and the only reason I'm doing that is so you can see that a change has been applied. So I'm going to press the red color right there, and I'm also going to choose the type of stitch pattern that I want, and I'm going to choose the candle wicking stitch. Press that, and then I'm going to press OK. You would think that when I select it in that screen, it would automatically be applied to the shape that I see in my working area, but it's not. You have to touch that line by using your fill tool and then touch it, and then all of a sudden, when I touch it, my line turns red. That means that property has been applied to that line. I realize you can't see that it's a candle wicking stitch, and sometimes that really throws people off. And the reason why I change my color is because sometimes if you change your color and then you touch the line, that change in color will let you know that you actually use that tip of your stylus and it worked. All right. Sometimes I don't bother changing my color, but sometimes it's helpful if you do, particularly if you're new. To see that change, I'm going to press the next icon at the bottom right. Then I'm going to press my preview, and then it's going to give me a warning. I'm going to press OK. And now I can see that this candle wicking stitch has been applied to this particular design, and it's going to look like this when it's stitched out. I'm going to press return, press cancel, and let's see if we can apply a different line property. Now I'm going to keep the color red this time. I'm going to keep it the same. But I'm going to go into my little notepad right here in my line properties box, and I'm going to choose the diamond stitch right here. Leaving it red, I'm going to press OK. But that change, again, does not take into an effect until you press the fill tool right here and then touch the line. Now the problem with not changing the color is that you touch the line, but we always need that reassurance that the line property is actually changed. And to do that, all you have to press is next, preview, and then you can actually see that that line property has been attached. And this has been changed. That is the diamond stitch. I'll press return, and then I will press cancel. I'm going to do this one more time so you can see how to apply the line property, a new line property, to your outline or whatever shape you choose. So right here, press the notepad, and this time I'm just going to go back to the satin stitch, press OK, and then I'm going to always go back to your fill tool, touch it, and then touch that line again. Let's see that change, because sometimes we need confirmation of it. Press next, press preview, it will give you a warning, press OK, and there we go. We are back to a satin stitch. Your homework for lesson 3 part 1 is going to be to go back to this page right here. I'll press all clear. And I want you to go and retrieve shapes and just use your line properties box, your notepad, and your fill tool, and just try applying line property changes to the outline of your shape. Thank you for joining me, everyone. This is lesson 3, part 2 of using line properties. All right, we're at this screen and we are going to select our beloved circle. So I'm going to go and choose my circle and just default to your 2 folders here. Select your circle and press OK. We have the circle on the screen. I am going to apply a different line property. Now, if you didn't turn off your machine, the line property, the last line property that was applied is the one that is going to be applied to this particular shape. So I'm just going to press next and preview just to double check what I got here, and I have a satin stitch. All right, so that is the normal default anyway, and I didn't turn off my machine, and that is the last one I was working with. All right, so I know what property has been applied. I want to change my line property, but I want to show you an alternate way, because as with everything, there's more than one way to do something. When I press next, you're going to see this circle here, and you will see a little, it's almost like a moving halo effect around the circle. That is normal. That means that this item has been selected for you to make some changes. Now, you will also notice here that your select keys have been grayed out because you're only working with one object on your screen. You just have a circle and that's it, nothing else, no other shapes. So you can't go back and forth to select when you only have one object on your screen. So up here, it actually tells you in this area what line property is applied and what color. If you want to change your line properties, you can do so in this screen. And to do that, all you have to do is press that zigzag and it brings up your line property screen. Sometimes it's easier to work with the first screen. Sometimes it's easier to work in this second screen. So I'm going to change my line properties to a different color. I'm going to choose a lilac, and I'm going to choose the candle wicking stitch and press OK. Now it tells me that this outline right here, this little moving halo, it has a lavender color, and the candle wicking stitch has been applied to this property. If we want to see it, we can go and preview it, press OK, and it shows us that candle wicking stitch in a lavender color. Again, we'll return, and I'm going to do this a couple times so you really try to get a feel for this. If you want to change it in this screen, you can just press on your candle wicking stitch, choose a different stitch, change your color if you would like, press OK, and then press preview. It'll even show you up here what your settings are and your colors. Press preview, OK, and now you will see the diamond stitch has been applied to that particular circle. So there are two ways to apply your line attributes, in the first screen and in that second screen, and this is your third screen right here. I'll press return. All right, so we kind of have a good concept of that, but there are more things we can actually do with our line properties. Any line property, if I press this one right here, any of these line properties we can apply changes to. And when I say changes, it may be the size, it may be the shape, it may be the spacing, the line length. So let's see what we can do with our satin stitch. I'll choose that. We're still going to go with the red color. I'll press OK. And we know those changes have been applied because you get the red color here and you get the satin stitch. And you also see the glowing halo around this, which means that the machine is seeing that you are working with this particular circle. Only object we have on our screen, so that's the only thing that can be selected by the machine. We're all good. If you look over here, in this green area right here, this is where changes can be made to any stitch that you choose. So for example, we have the satin stitch. I'm going to change this. Well, not this one yet. I'm going to change the width of the satin stitch. I'm going to increase it to its widest width. And I'll press set, and then I'll press preview. Let's see how this looks. Press OK. And now you're going to see a very, very bold type of satin stitch, definitely thicker than the original default. This would look beautiful in a shimmery rayon, variegated embroidery thread, just fabulous. I'm going to press return. So not only can you change the width, you can change the density. Now, before I change the density, if I go back to preview and press OK, if I look very closely, I can see spaces in the stitches here and spaces in the stitches here, even a little bit up here. That is not a screen issue. Those spaces will actually appear in your stitch out. So you always want to look for these little spaces. Press return. And I'm going to change my density right here. I'm going to increase it to 110%. I can't go beyond that. I can go down to 90 and up to 110. Press set, press preview, and press OK. Now Those little white areas have gone away because we have increased the density of the stitch. All right, perfect. It looks really good now. Let's press return and let's choose a different stitch. Again, we're not going all the way back to the first screen. We're just working with this second screen. And another way to do it is to just press that stitch. We will go into our candle wicking stitch, and I'll change the color this time just so that you know you can change color. And I'll make it a blue and press OK. All right, so it says candle wicking in blue. If I preview that particular line attribute, press OK, it shows me the candle wicking stitch. But like I said, each stitch attribute can be modified for a custom look. I only have a very limited number of attributes on my 10 needle, but you may have a lot more on your particular high-end machine. I'll cancel this out. I still have that candle wicking stitch in the color blue. I'm going to increase the size of the candle wicking stitch. So I'm going to move from the default up to the highest setting, press set, press preview, and press OK. Wow, what a difference, a very large candle wicking stitch. But that's not all. Press return, and at this time I'm going to select the spacing. I'm going to make the spacing the max amount and press set so you can see what that looks like. Press preview, press OK. Wow, that's another big difference right there. So you can control the spacing in between the stitches. You control the size of this particular candle wicking stitch, and depending on your machine, you may have many more options, and that's where you can really get creative. I'll press return. I'll change this again. Here is the diamond stitch. I'll select a different color just because I can. Choose almost like a wine color. Press OK. Wine color, diamond stitch. It always lets me know right here what my attributes are. These are the two icons in which I can change my stitch. Now when I press preview and I'll press OK, this is going to be the default diamond stitch. So if I want to modify that, I'm going to press return and I'm going to go into the size of the diamond. I always like to work with extremes on videos. I'm going to set it to the highest setting, press set, and press preview. So I'm going to get the largest diamond stitch that I can get. It may not look too much bigger, but it is bigger. That's the maximum parameter for size. I'm going to press return because when you're doing the diamond stitch, this icon right here is really important. When you have a diamond, this is currently set to 5. When I am in class, anybody that chooses the diamond stitch, I always tell them to reduce this down to 2. Why? Well, this is the reason. Because when you do a diamond, it'll do it once, and then it'll stitch it twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times on each diamond in the series. When you're in a classroom setting, that will take forever. So I always say, if you're in the classroom, I want you to go down to 2, 1 or 2, because what will happen is it just, the more repeats you have on a particular stitch, it's going to take a lot longer. But if you want to really emphasize that diamond stitch, you can go up to 5 times of that tracing on each particular segment of that stitch, and that can really make a stitch pop. And if you're using a beautiful decorative thread, again, a variegated thread, it's just going to really highlight the stitch outline or the stitch attribute that you're using. All right, so I will just set that, and you may not see the changes here, but you will see it on your stitch out. All right, so I'll just press return. And the last one I want to show you, the triple bean and the running stitch are going to be very similar. I'll just choose the triple bean and I'll press OK. When you press this, the only attribute you have is this one right here. And think of this as your line length, your your stitch length, for example, 2.4 or 3.0 or 5.0. So if you're doing a circle, I like setting it a little bit shorter because shorter stitches allow for a smoother curve. All right, and you probably wouldn't see that until you would actually stitch it out. Do a preview, and again with the running stitch and the triple bean, I don't really see too much of the change on here, but the line length will just give you a better look on your curves. All right, I'll press return and cancel. And that is all for part 2 of your line attributes. So I want you to practice, changing your line attributes in this screen, pressing next, and changing your line attributes in this second screen using this option right up here, and also changing the attributes of each particular stitch that you choose. I want you to spend about an hour doing this because I think the more you do, the better you will get. All right, and then I want you to come back and join me for part 3 of lesson 3 on line attributes. Hey everyone, welcome back to part 3 of lesson 3, which is applying a line attribute to a line or a shape. In this particular start of this video, I'm going to go through some of the troubleshooting that I see when I teach this class in person. And I'm going to highlight one of the most common problems that people make. So let's select a shape, select the circle, press OK. Our circle is on our screen. This is what people do. They go into the notepad and they change the stitch type. I was working with this before, and the last one I worked with was the candle wicking stitch. I'm going to switch back to the satin stitch, change my color. I'll make it a bright orange, press OK. So on this particular stitch, now I'm going to go up and just press my line to change it. Wait a minute. I don't see a change in color. Why? In fact, I see little spots up here. Let's magnify this to see what's going on. I'll move my magnification box up in this area up here. Ooh, when I touch the line, it's not changing. I'm adding spots. Why? Because if you look over here in your line properties box, you are using the pencil tool and you're not using the fill tool. So what do you do at this point? It happens a lot. Just press undo until we get rid of all those little dots. And I believe I have to have up to 50 undos on this machine. I could have more. Then select your fill properties, your fill bucket, and touch that line. And there we go. It has changed to orange and it is now back at a zigzag. If we press next, we can double check that. Yes, that exactly is the stitch that is selected right here, and all is good. So that is what I wanted to show you is the most common error that people make when I work with them in person in a class. So far you've learned a lot about the line attributes in IQ Designer or My Design Center, but how do you pull it all together? Sometimes I find this is the hardest part for people in class. So let's just do a simple design. And this is also going to show us how to work with multiple designs on the screen at the same time, and it will show you how to change the line attributes when you are working with more than one object. We'll go into shapes. I'll select my second folder right here. I'll choose the corners, press OK. It brought the corners on the screen. Again, I always want to check to make sure that that red line is inside my 8 by 12 border, because if it's not, that can cause me more work later on. All right, I like the way it's set up. I'll go into my shapes again and I will choose, I'm going to go into my open shapes and I will choose this leaf right here. Press OK, bring it in. It comes in as very large. This is not going to work for me, so the red bounding box is around it, which means I can access the size and bring it down. So I just want that leaf to sit in the center of those 4 corners. Bring it down a little more. I think that's good. You could rotate it, whatever you want to do. But at this point, I'm just going to press OK because I have the shapes that are necessary on my screen. Now I'm going to work with changing the attributes of these shapes on my screen. I do want to double check to see what they're all currently set at. This is a good idea because if you had your machine on and you were working on something else, the stitch type may be different. I'll press next and check this out. All right, I'm going back to the default zigzag, and I did set it up that way to make it easy because when you turn your machine on, you will default to that zigzag in black. And notice that my select arrows down here, they are not grayed out, which means I can go from shape to shape to shape and just advance through all the shapes on the screen. And when I did that, you'll notice that this does not change. So everything was brought in as a zigzag in the black stitching line. The first thing I'm going to show you is, and this is really important, particularly when we get to scanning, if you scan in a line drawing, sometimes the line drawing will scan in as separate objects. And in this case, if I want to take all of these objects and change the stitching line, I need to do it all together. If you want to change all of your objects together, what you can do is press your chain link icon right here, and it will put that halo effect around every object that has that stitch type right here. So since all of these have that satin stitch zigzag, I can go and change all of them by pressing that, and let's say we're going to change it to a diamond stitch, and we can change the color and press OK. So when we look at these now, every single object on the screen has been switched to a diamond stitch in a pink color. Let's preview that to see how it looks. And there is the change. I will do that one more time. Press return. To change all of your stitch types at once, the halo effect must be around every object. And what's going to happen is when I press the chain link, every pattern that has the diamond stitch type is going to change to a different stitch type. So let's press that pattern, and we'll press the triple bean, change the color, and press OK. Everything has been changed to a triple bean. Press preview, press OK, and they now have that triple bean stitch attribute applied to every single object. All right, let's press return. And right now we're going to press cancel. We are back at the home screen. The more you play with your stitch attributes, the more you're going to know which screen it's easier to apply attributes, whether it be this first screen or the second one. And like I said, the more you play, the more it's going to become second nature to you which screen to use. But looking at this, I know that I just applied the stitch attributes to every single object as a triple bean. What I'm going to do now is change the stitch attributes of these upper corners to something different. So I will go into my notepad, I'll choose the satin stitch, and I'll change the color, and I'll press OK. And make sure that you highlight your fill tool, and I'll touch the line here and touch the line there. When I press next and preview, I can see that the stitch attribute has been applied to these up here. So to illustrate the concept of using the locking function, remember I said that if you have like stitches and you press the locking function, they will be grouped together. So right here, these are set to an orange satin stitch. I can change that. I can change both together, but the other ones are the triple beans, so it's only going to lock those like attribute objects together. Maybe I'll change this to a diamond, and I'll make it purple and press OK. So now these two have been changed, but if I go and I'll turn the locking function off, and I go to these, remember that's a triple bean, and triple bean. Let's say I want to take the triple bean icons or triple bean objects and change them to make them the same as these two up here. So I will connect all of the objects that have the triple bean together and press the triple bean stitch. I'll bring it back to the diamond stitch, and gosh, what color did I use? Was it orange or purple? I don't know. I'll press OK, And no, it wasn't. It was a lilac. So I'll go into my attributes again, and I think it was this one. Press OK. And now they should be all the same. So let me just go through. Yes, looks like they are all the same. Okay. And again, since all of these objects are now the same, if I want to change them all back to a satin stitch, I will press my locking icon. Because all of these objects have that same stitch attribute, now I can go into that stitch attribute and change it back to a satin stitch and press OK. And let's do a preview on this because they should all be that satin stitch. And they are. All right, awesome. If I want to do a little bit more with this and play around, I can. So let's press return. If you'll remember in a previous clip, I taught you how you can change each stitch attribute. In this green area down here, it will list different icons so you can make changes. So for example, on my satin stitch right here, I'm going to link everything together, and I'm going to change the size, or I should say the zigzag width, to the maximum setting and press set. Let's see how that looks. I'll press preview. So everything is going to look very bright and bold. We're going to have a very wide stitch. Oh, pattern extends to the outside of the embroidery area and not be converted. Remember how I said you got to be careful with the size of your block. This is one of those instances where I got that error. So I'm actually creating more work for myself. All right, so let me try to bring it down. Maybe I can't go that full width given the parameters that I have. I'll press set and let's do a preview. Will it accept it? Let's see. Yes, it will accept. Oh no, it's not accepting this width either. Let's find something that will work. And sometimes you may get situations like this. Let's see how it looks. But this is what can happen if your border, your red bounding box, is too close to that. So in this case, what are we going to do? I'm going to cancel this out. And I'm going to go back here, choose my select tool, and I am going to draw a bounding box around my border. Change the size, bring it in a little bit, and let's see how much I'll have to bring it in. I think that should be okay. I'll press OK. I'll press next. And remember, if we scroll through, what I'm trying to do is change all of these shapes which have the same property. I'll link them together. And then I'm going to go down to my stitch attributes right here, change my zigzag width. Let's see if I can use the highest setting. And there we go. It's just that I was too close to that border, okay, and going with that wide width. So that's actually a really good example of things that we run into. Now, if you look real close here, notice that I can see little spots of white in here, little lines. In that case, I'm going to press return, and I'm going to increase my stitch density to try to take some of that out. So I'll press set and preview. What you see is what you get. That old WYSIWYG is coming back to haunt us. Now, I do have it set up to the highest setting, and I'm still getting those lines. So, like I said, this isn't digitizing software. We can only do so much, but sometimes we just have to accept what we're getting because I can't go any higher than that 110%. All right, let me apply one more stitch property to this. So I'm going to lock everything together. And currently we're at the satin stitch with the maximum width. I'm going to change this, and I will choose candle wicking stitch, and I'll choose a red and press OK. Locking function is going to be engaged, and notice that I have this right up here. Let's do a preview on this. Let's see what it looks like, and there we go. We have that nice candle wicking stitch. Press return. Remember, we can make some changes on here. I'm going to lock them all together and press my size, increase the size. I'm going to go up kind of high. Press preview. Let's see how that looks. There we go. All right, maybe that doesn't look so good. It looks fine on the corners, but again, this is where when you play around with your shapes, you'll kind of get the feel for what looks good, what line attributes, what different changes you can make in those attributes will look good on certain shapes. So that looks good for the corners, but it doesn't look so good for that leaf. All right, but we know that we can go back to this screen, and if we want to just change that leaf, we can go into our notepad. Maybe I want to make that a triple bean. I'll make it in the color green. Press OK. Press your fill bucket tool. Touch that line. Let's see what it looks like. We'll press next and preview and OK. Let's see how it looks. Oh yes, that leaf looks much better in a triple bean or a regular line, a running stitch. All right, so you guys, that concludes this particular segment of lesson 3. There is a lot more you can do, but the only way you're going to become proficient with using the line properties if you actually experiment. I am thrilled that we actually ran into a size issue, and I showed you how to make that correction to get it to fit. All right, you guys, I want you to practice, practice, practice at least an hour on this, doing what I've just done in this third clip for part 3 of lesson 3. All right, get to work.